shall we talk about what we're doing in this series? This is part 7 of
Hmm.
getting into Consul, and we've been pretty busy. Um,
Hmm.
what have we done in part 1 to 6? Would you care to recap some things that we've done?
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of what we've gotten through and done, so we began with maybe a little bit more than the than someone beginning this might start with, because the whole goal has been to get Consul running up on AWS and really explore what it is that we can do with it. So to make that happen, before we even started the series, we went ahead and stood up some infrastructure on AWS through Terraform, and then that kind of marked the beginning. We had some servers up, we had some basics up there, so like the network and the like. And then from there, we started with the basics. So we configured the first server and client for Consul. We moved from there into service discovery for Consul, and then into scaling and accidentally outage recovery. We also figured out metrics, security, traffic encryption, quite a bit into ACLs and that. And we, in fact, I think we spent 2 parts just going through that itself. And then the previous session that I was not a part of, Rosemary and Eddie, they explored the auto config options with Consul and HTTP Vault, which we actually, and I'll let Rosemary explain a little bit around that, but we actually rolled back on and just, yeah, you can talk about that, Rosemary, but that's where we're at.
So we decided not to include auto config going forward. And it's not because we don't like auto config. It is because the way that we set up our self-contained console cluster automation does not lend well to auto config. On top of that, we don't want everybody having a dependency on HTTP Vault. HTTP Vault is fantastic, but it also requires you to have knowledge of Vault. And this is like getting into console stream. And while we'd love to talk about Vault, I mean, Cole, I think that's a whole other series talking
Yeah.
about Vault. And so, for the sake of simplicity, but also for those who are tuning in, anybody who checks out the stream and wants to reference the code, we removed HTTP Vault and thus auto config, or the auto configuration of the console cluster, so that you do not have to have knowledge of Vault, but you don't also have to do the secondary pieces of configuring the auto configuration and authentication to work. So that's why it has been removed. However, you can
Mm-hmm.
still reference it because we did put it in part 6, right? Cool. Okay.
Yep. Yep, we do. We've got the part 6 branch, which has all of that in it. There is a little bit more work that needs to be added, just some around instructions for you if you're going to take a look at it. But if you're going to follow along with us post part 6 to part 7, you do want to use the part 6B branch that is going to let you follow along with us here. So that is what we're on to that.
I didn't
I
realize
mean,
we subdivided by letters.
well, we didn't, in the sense that the branch is part 6 and then part 6 manual, but I didn't feel like going back and renaming the branches and stuff. So yeah, anyhow, you can navigate GitHub. It's not too bad. Beyond that, though, I did find it kind of funny just when we were going through it, that despite the fact auto config is to auto configure, when it came to the actual steps, there was actually more manual steps with the auto config involved than without. So the way that we're going to set it up today is actually shorter. And I can talk about a few things going through that I would like to see automated that I probably could have automated, but um, yeah. So
We can acknowledge this, which we hate to say this, but we compromised a bit on the security of our configuration for the sake of automation. Just in this situation, we would set up external components, but we decided that this was probably a suitable alternative for the sake of ease of use and reproducibility.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
especially for learning purposes. It's nice to have, because otherwise, we could set it up ideally, but with that ideal setup, it's probably going to lead to you, the viewer, having to leave it up, and or every time you come back to revisit this, jumping through who knows how many gauntlets just to get it set back up again. So we wanted to try and narrow that process down. Okay, so Rosemary, we talked about it right before, but I don't have everything stood up right now, and I was going to walk through that entire process again from beginning to end to get this repo up and running, just so for anyone hopping in here in the middle, or maybe you've gotten through the first 4 parts and you're like, I don't remember any of how this is going. This has been cleaned up a little bit. So, Rosemary, would you like me to start that now, or would you like to talk about what we're going to be doing today beforehand?
Let's walk through the whole setup. And then we can talk about what we're doing today. Because today is the dawn of a new era in getting into Consul.
Okay.
I'm trying to be as dramatic as possible, but it's really not that dramatic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we're going to dramatically set up our cluster now because we didn't do it.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and go through the steps. I guess, Rosemary, if you want to talk about the finer details as I do it, that would probably work because I'll probably have my head stuck in the terminal or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
Oh, someone in the chat is saying they want to go make popcorn for this one. So.
Oh, why? Why popcorn?
Popcorn? No, don't knock popcorn. I like popcorn.
Oh, no. The popcorn's great. What I meant was just for.
Because we're being dramatic. This is a dramatic,
dramatic
recap.
All right, so over on the getting into Consul repo that we have been working on, we went ahead and revamped the steps here to have a little bit more clarity so you can follow them. They are not as automated as we would like, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you it can't be as automated as we like without some significant either infrastructure gymnastics, external components like were explored in the previous one. So there is going to be a bit of copy pasta, but hopefully not as much. So in the beginning, you got to make sure that you got some stuff set up, right? So you need your AWS account. You're going to need a few things installed locally for a script we're going to run that is optional. You could do this manually, but we just put something together to make it a little bit faster. So just the AWS CLI, Terraform, Consul, and JQ. And then beyond that, you're going to need to make sure that you set up an IAM user on AWS with admin or power user permissions, make a profile, load it up in your CLI, and then get the SSH key on your SSH agent. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that stuff because hopefully, well, first up, that's all over AWS stuff. So you'll be able to find that just fine. Okay, so you get down through that, and then the first thing we're going to do is just a Terraform.
Can you increase your font on the CLI? Thank you.
Is that good?
One
more? Oh, whoa.
No, maybe that's too big. Okay. Yeah. Go down.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yep. So Terraform apply. We're going to go through and do this. This is going to make all of our initial resources. And really, not a lot has changed as we've gone through this in terms of what we've added. A lot of the tweaks have been around our security group rules, just adding in ports and removing them where necessary. But in terms of the core resources like the servers and the network, we haven't really changed much. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into the pipeline here. And as this goes through, we can talk a little bit more about the finer details as a recap, Rosemary.
Yeah, so pop quiz. What does this Terraform create? Server, client, how many of each? What does it actually create that's console related?
Yeah. So one of the begins with the virtual private cloud. So our private network first. Well, it's not. Parts of it are private, parts of it aren't, for us to put all of the resources into. After that, we've got 3 different auto scaling groups for our Consul servers, and then our 2 different types of Consul clients, as opposed to straight up nodes or VMs. Just that way, we put them behind an auto scaling group. If they go down, they come back up. Though doing that with the servers creates an interesting outage recovery exercise if you're feeling ambitious. And
that was the one where we purposely did it to it. We purposely took it down. We were just wondering what was happening.
Yeah. And on top of that, security group rules. So the equivalent of firewalls in between all of these different servers to make sure that they can access each other over the right ports where needed. And that is pretty much it in a nutshell. In terms of the code base, we could walk through it line by line, but I'm not sure that that's necessary unless anyone has a specific question.
Probably not, but maybe it's worth going over this because I think we've gone through this a couple times every stream and it's still not fully solid. So what are Consul's ports and what do they do?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to open up that file and then I'm going to be like, Rosemary, would you like to tell us about all these ports? Because even though we've collectively put in these different descriptions, the context gets lost to me. So let's go ahead and go down to, what do you want to begin with? I don't think we need to go to the bastion at all because that should be obvious. Or the load balancer, right? That's just going to allow in traffic from the public so that we can reach either our Consul server UI or just Consul server in general, or we have another one that hits the web service. But the real ones begin with the Consul server. So here we go. Rosemary, you want to talk to us about port 8500?
8500 is the Consul API, remember? So if you ever need to access the Consul API from your local machine, Terraform provider, name your choice, you would do this on 8500.
Yeah. And we have it open for two different things. One from the load balancer so that we can access it from the load balancer we mentioned above. And then one from the client, since the clients also need to access that API.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
clients need access for registration, partially for registration and service catalog API. Our clients run with services, and the services, because of DNS and DNS interface and various things that we've set up, it does need access. So that is important to know.
Nice.
Okay, 8301. I think this is the one we get mixed up the most. 8301 and 8300.
Yeah.
So 8301 LAN gossip. So Consul clients, Consul servers all must talk to each other. Consul servers and Consul servers must also talk to each other. And it is for cluster membership, right? So it's for, hello, I'm a cluster member. And so they'll all communicate with each other and register themselves and say, hello, hi. 8300 is for sending and receiving data. So this is over RPC. I don't believe we set this. Oh, yes, we set this for server as well. So server to server, client to server, all clients and servers need to send and receive information about the services that are getting registered. Any metadata information gets sent over 8300. So 8301 is the cluster membership card, so to speak, that when you go to, if you go to a wholesale club, it's the it's the membership card. 8300 would be like the walkie-talkies you use to find your friend in said wholesale club. Bad analogy, but I tried. Nice. If someone has a better analogy, please put it in the chat because we really struggled with this one.
Well, today I learned that Rosemary takes walkie-talkies to wholesale clubs, so that's.
Hey, I mean, we have cell phones now, I guess, but like sometimes I get no signal, so then I have to bring the walkie-talkie. Okay. That's a tangent. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going on. So 8301, 8300, we resolved an error because of this, but everything between clients and servers must have this port open for communication.
Yep. And then right down here, we just have two quick rules, one to allow the bastion access, and then one for it to allow any outbound traffic that it wants to initiate. So that's simple enough.
Now,
you get down
other pop quiz, because a port is not listed on here because it's not about connectivity, but it is an important port. What is Consul's DNS port if you wanted to use Consul for your DNS?
Yeah, I totally don't remember. Does it begin with 5? No. Does it begin with a 9? No.
It's always an 8. It always starts as an 8.
Oh, so it is an 8. So is it the 85? Oh, am I close? Oh, no.
8600.
Oh, wow. I was way off. I didn't even know 6 was involved in this party. Okay, well. Okay, well. Interesting.
Wait, no, now I have to check. Hold on. Did we get that wrong? Hold on a moment. Yeah, it's 8600. Okay. Oof.
Yeah. So why don't we have that open then?
Because we only use it to resolve locally on the host, right? 8600 we're not
Okay.
using it to resolve DNS across different hosts. We're only using
Okay.
it locally on the host to resolve, right? So
Nice.
that's why we did the whole DNS routing thing for service discovery.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because
Yes.
that's actually in our that should be
Yeah.
in, this is that script.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
That
is it?
weird on the clients.
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
we did the
You're right.
routing on the clients. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, here it
That
is.
thingy.
There it is. There's the unsung hero.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Nice.
So we got all
So
the
move,
ports.
yeah, well, mostly, right? Because then we also have the web ones down here. So the only one we haven't really touched on is the 9090, which is just for the fake service that we have set up. So
Yep.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so there are the ports. That was helpful. Make sure you bookmark that, Rosemary, because that'd be good for
Oh,
the
let
stream.
me add a little marker. I did, but I forgot where we started, so now I have to scroll back.
Yeah.
Well.
While you do that, I'll continue with the setup instructions. Okay. So we got everything set up here. It looks like Terraform was done getting everything done. Yeah. So at this point, all the resources are up and running, but Consul in the background is just whining and complaining for a couple of reasons. We've enabled ACLs, but we haven't actually passed the ACL tokens to any of the clients at the moment. And that's why right now, if you were to dive into any of them, they're just going to be saying, hey, we can't, if you were to do like a Consul catalog services, it'll be like, there aren't any, and we can't find anything. So that is that. In fact, I guess we can go ahead and open up the UI to take a look at that. Well, let's see if maybe it's just not all the way up yet.
Is it because it's not
active.
even red? Is it not even oh, okay.
Yeah, you know what? It might not, it just might. Let's continue with things. Let's see if
The ACLs might not be up.
yeah, let's just see if that is it. We're gonna continue on, and if this, although, you know what, I really don't feel like wasting a bunch of time doing this stuff if it's just completely crashed and it's something like a GPG key thing again.
Live
So
debugging.
yeah, so wow, this was supposed to be the short part, so we're just gonna pretend like this was intentional. Anyhow, you'll see this 50 bad gateway that we intended to do, and now we're gonna try and figure out what is going on.
Can you zoom in on that one too?
Oh yeah, good point.
Thank you.
All right, so now I'm in the Bastion, and I'm going to hop into the server. All right. Yes.
Also, for those who just tuned into this stream, yeah, I think the you have to probably reinstall because the GPG key, right? This
Yep, I'm gonna go check.
Yeah, sometimes it fails to install because the GPG key doesn't get loaded correctly.
Yep.
We have not properly debugged why.
Oh wait, actually I think it's cloud output.
Also, for those who are tuning in and watching as Cole painstakingly prepends sudo to every command. He is allergic to running sudo su.
See, but then I lose my little green thing here if I do that. Yeah, it was literally the GPG thing. So if anyone has any insights on why this is, I cannot track when or why this decides to fail. Sometimes it just does. And if it does, well, you can try and do it in place here, which, you know, you can, but honestly, most of the time I'm just going to destroy stuff and put it back up again. So yeah. Okay. Anyhow. Oh, so goodness.
Well, the good news is that we're checking the GPG key. The problem is we somehow don't get the right one and then it fails. So
yeah. Yep. I'm really not sure what it is that causes that. But yeah. Okay. Well, in the meantime, while we go through this, Rosemary, is there anything else you would like to recap, or perhaps we just start talking about two topics that I'd like to discuss? Either one is practical applications of what we've learned so far and how you can apply it, or going ahead and talking about service mesh, because we're going to have to ramp up in that topic anyways.
well, let's talk about practical applications, and then for 10 minutes or so, get this up, and then we can do service mesh, because
Yeah.
that way it's a lot cleaner for our editing purposes as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I want to ask you then, Rosemary, from this standpoint, with what we know right now, we know how to stand up Consul, get it up, register different services to it, and have them available. Obviously, we had that during HashiCorp. We talked about Consul API gateway. So once it's out, that'll help with ingress traffic, which will be really nice. But in terms of the day-to-day applications, if I wanted to build out a multi-tiered application, is this something, what I have right here, is this what I can use to replace the traditional, let's just throw everything behind a load balancer every single time?
I think so. Although it's added complexity in some ways too. And the way I think about it is there's a book called Evolutionary Architecture. Highly recommend it. It's written by some fantastic folks who have thought a lot about software architecture. And I think it's a good representation. I think service mesh is a good representation of a workflow solution to a tangible problem that happens with your software and infrastructure architecture. And it gets messy, right? When you have all these services, when you have three tiers of applications, and 3 applications, things are simple. You don't have to do too much. You could put it all behind a load balancer and be very happy with it. And that is fine. You don't have to add complexity to it. It's the same argument as like maybe you do things for lack of a we all don't want to do this, but it's the same reason that maybe, Cole, you configured these 3 servers manually to start. It works, right? But over time, and as you grow your business, as you have to serve, hopefully, more customers, more people using your platforms and systems, more teams, mergers and acquisitions of various companies, your architecture grows to support those services and those business needs. And inevitably, the problem is, well, you can't manually build things anymore.
Yep.
What worked for 3 things does not work for 100 anymore. Can you imagine registering 100 services behind one load balancer? Like,
no, I cannot. That would be so.
you could, but at the end of the day, how do you manage it? How do you maintain it? And so I think that service mesh is a very tangible solution to a lot of complexity, right? Because when you get to this point where you have hundreds, if not more, millions of services running, and you, let's say, change your fundamental software architecture from a bunch of monoliths and you start to break it down into microservices, or more differently, you don't even have to break down your monolith. You might just say, I just have a monolith running on a server, a monolithic architecture running on a server, and now I want to put it in containers, right? All of those architectural decisions that you need to make in order to scale, you have to add another layer on top of that to make it easier for you to manage. And networking is kind of the one space that it's really hard to modularize. Personal opinion, disclaimer, I feel like networking is the biggest monolith in anyone's system because there's no choice but for a network to be a monolith, right? Networking is about communication, sure, right? It's really hard to modularize. You think about BGP outages, you think about these things like,
That was a meta comment.
Yes.
That was a pun, too.
Yes.
Hi, Taylor, if you're out there watching. Anyhow.
But you think about it, a network is a huge monolith, right? And so what I try to think about, or what I try to understand, specifically with Consul, is that Consul's giving you a way to break down that network monolith just a little bit, right? To organize it around how your business truly functions, right? It's domain-driven design for your network. And you can't do it with your network, right? IP addresses don't fully express business domain or business functions or business needs. But Consul in some ways adds this other layer on top of it that describes what those IP addresses belong to, how you're going to connect across multiple workloads, Doesn't matter if it's a COBOL server or a container, you know. You could do the same thing, right? You can run a console client if you wanted to, or you could still register an external service, you know, a COBOL service or something to console and connect to it and use a container to connect to it if you needed to, right? So it's, I think that while today it's a very, what we're doing today is a very small example. As you grow and you grow and you grow, there is a lot of technical debt, which we don't like to talk about, but it's inevitable. There's a lot of technical debt we accumulate in organically grown infrastructure systems, and we have to break that down somehow, and Consul in some ways offers a layer for you to do that.
Nice. From my own experience, when I've stood up infrastructure in the past, it's interesting because the service catalog, service mesh type thing, if you're in a smaller team, if you're in a startup, it's probably not even like in your index of even understanding that it's a problem. So for me, at least, that mental model to an extent limited me, because in previous architectures, when we had services talking to other services, right, not talking to users, it always became, all right, here's our service that's private. Let's front it with a private load balancer, and then we're going to talk to it through that. And then every time we set up a new private service, we had to stand up another load balancer. And if you know cost estimation in AWS, you know that those are not that cheap, especially if you're going to start fronting them with private certificates and stuff. So that is a whole another layer where every single private service you might stand up, you've got that in front of it as well. And then the management that come with those load balancers. So being able to just point to them to a catalog and do it like this, despite the fact that your GPG key can just sometimes be like, no, we're not doing it, is, in my opinion, I don't know why I've arrived at the word lesser evil, because it's not evil at all. A much better way, a much better approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's why it's in some ways, it's not like if you don't need it, if you don't need Consul now, you don't need Consul now. But that's what it is, right? You might not need it for 3 services, but if you continue to grow the number of services that you have, you're going to need something. It doesn't have to be Consul, but you inevitably have a service discovery solution, right? Which is what we're talking about. We're heavily focused on, at least in the past, in the 6 parts that we've previously discussed. You need something to help facilitate service registration and service discovery, identifying what services are available in your infrastructure and being able to connect between them somehow. And that's a tough problem, right? It's not, a lot of people solve it in a lot of different ways. We did it with load balancers, pretty much with load balancers for the longest time. Yep. And they kind of worked. But then containers came along and many other dynamic kind of workloads came along. And we can't do that anymore. So here we are.
Yep. And applications kept getting bigger and bigger and more distributed and more microservicey, and just made things more complicated.
Yeah, I highly recommend evolutionary architecture because it gives you a good foundation for understanding how to identify solutions for workflow problems that you have, right? How do you build and evolve your system? Because there's only one thing that you know, and it is a very powerful premise. There's only one thing that you know about your system, and that they will evolve. And that is the only thing you can plan for. You can't plan for anything else. You can't even, in some ways, plan for resiliency or availability. As much as you can't always bank on that either. But you will always be able to understand change, or understand that your architecture and your systems will change. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is on to round 2 here. So probably when we go into the talk around resetting this up, probably around this timestamp should probably be the new place that we point people. But while we're waiting here the next minute or so, I guess, with the current architecture, when I got into Consul, I was very, and I'll save that question. We got this done. Let's see if this is up and going now. All right. So everything has been recreated. So once again, this is how you get this up and running. Let me just check that this is even up before I start talking and wasting any more time on that.
Yeah.
All right. So we're up. We got it. Yay. All right. So for those of you looking to get started with this, we've walked through the first thing: have an AWS account, have the CLI, have your SSH key, run Terraform apply. Terraform apply goes up, Consul's up and running. But if we go through here, first I have to set my token here. Let me unshare real quick so I can grab this without showing everyone.
Wow! By the way, for the longest time, we hadn't locked down any access to load balancers and now Cole has like unscreen shared so that he doesn't show us the token. It's great.
Okay, so now we're back. So all I did there, actually, I got to unshare again real quick.
I love this. This is amazing.
Okay,
I mean,
you didn't.
I didn't see anything. I don't see.
Yeah,
anything.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of the little penguin that's like, you didn't see anything. Okay, anyhow, this is all up, and if we go to our nodes, we'll see that all the nodes are here. They're all good. If we go to services, they're like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, man. We don't have any services because of the ACLs that we set up. In essence, we set up the ACL system, but we haven't given it what it needs to start using it properly because none of them have their tokens. So that's the next step here, is we are going to run this little script that does nothing other than create those tokens. And, you might be wondering, well, Cole, why didn't we do that in the Terraform apply? That is a great question that I want answered at some point. And a lot of it comes down to this chicken and egg problem where in order to distribute those tokens, the servers must already be live. And there it is right there. So that's why this has to come after. It's something that has to come after. And in fact, until Consul, up until Consul 1.4, 1.5, Rosemary, you couldn't bring your own UUID as the master bootstrap ACL token, but now we can, and we discovered that recently. And even though you can do that, and even though we've solved that problem in this apply, so in the first Terraform apply, the ACL system gets bootstrapped with a master token that we generate locally, we can't do that with any tokens for the clients. So we still have to wait until everything's up before we do that.
Can you show the config with the token, like ACL token?
Yes, in the server.
Just to be clear, yeah, because we previously didn't configure this before.
Yes.
But there is literally a field that you have to set.
Yeah, so
under
right
ACL tokens, right?
Yes.
As such.
So this is it. So first up, this is for the master token, and it's just a UUID that we use. So there's at least in the conversations, discussions that I've looked up, it's this sort of bring your own UUID, and then the UUID gets attached to the token itself, and we get the master token. And then we have the agent token here. And Rosemary, would you mind explaining that a little bit? Because I know that prior we've just been using default, but I know that if you don't specify agent, it just falls back to default. But is there any reason why these are the same? Or
I don't know. I didn't ask necessarily. We should probably check.
Okay, so this was carryover from the previous. But anyhow, not to derail, we can come back to that later. So this is where that happens. This does get made. However, what's causing the problem is in our client and our API. You'll see here that the token they need is not specified, neither for the Consul agent or the service itself down here. So that's what we're going to be generating. So we've got to make 2 tokens for each of the clients here. And that is all the little script that we're going to run here does. It just makes those and spits them into a file so that we can save a little bit more time. So we're going to do that. That's going to make these tokens for us. And then we're going to be doing some SSH copy pasta for probably like a couple minutes, depending upon how long it takes me to do it. And that will pretty much complete it. So while I do that, I'll just sort of comment, but Rosemary, if you have any thoughts, feel free.
So I looked up the agent token. It's used for clients and servers to perform internal operations. So just because we set what is called the field of master token, that is for servers. It looks like it's for bootstrapping the ACL system. Agent is for clients and servers internally to do everything like getting metadata, services, etc. So I think we need to set master and agent fields in the ACL token configuration because one is for bootstrapping the ACL system and the other is for any internal operations that the server needs to process.
Okay. Cool.
And not default. But that is what I am interpreting from the configuration.
Cool. So I'm just coming into the API client, or the client that has the API on it, and I'm just taking my tokens here that I have generated. Here, I'll sudo SU for you, Rosemary.
Thank you. It's just amazing.
Okay. So we're just going to put that token in. Let me make sure I grabbed it. Yep, API. I am on the API server. Let me double check just in case I am.
Yeah.
Yay.
So as a side note, while Cole copy pastes and adds all these tokens, this is to ensure that we are enabling or facilitating least privilege for node and service registration. So the console clients themselves also should have the least privilege access to register. So we don't want them to have access to everything in console. We only want them to have certain parts of certain access to the console API. Similarly, we're doing this to services as well, services to register to console.
Yes, because otherwise we would just give them a token that's like, go forth and do whatever you want, which we don't want them to do.
Right. So someone could go in, use the token, and look up services or other metadata. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that they only have a specific access to the API.
Yeah. So once you dump those tokens into those two files, which we did here, you're just going to restart console, and then you need to restart the service itself, and you can move on. So now I'm going to do the same thing for the web clients here. I'm just going to go over here and grab the other IP here and move forward. And into the console configuration file. This is the web node. So grab this token here. Do it one more time for the web service configuration file. And then restart stuff. And then we're like 90% of the way there. Actually, I think we might be all the way there.
Did you set the DNS policy?
That's the thing, is when I redid it, I didn't have to. I don't know if something's changed, but the default token comes with those things that we've added. And I don't recall that being the case when we first did this.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's go see. So here it's talking about that it is blocked. Let's go check this out. So this has been done, unless I massively screwed up a token somewhere. Okay, so now we see the services are here. So that's good, but even though they're checking out here, the thing that we've got to double check is let me go back over here, is we have that load balancer pointing to the fake web service. And we need to see if those two can actually talk to each other. So that might be the gotcha here. Okay, so actually everything is up and working here. So if you are looking at our getting into console instructions here, step 11 has you create a custom policy to attach. And so if we go into the console here, if we look at any of our tokens, and these are the things being passed around kind of, just to identify themselves and let them do things. What you would do if you look at any given one of these, so like this is the one for the web server, I believe, and it has a policy that comes by default, and it allows it to do said things. And you'll notice down here at Rosemary, I swear this was not here the first time.
Oh yeah, that wasn't.
Because we had to add that by default.
Wait. Go back to your config. Did you enable console connect? Like, did
nope.
you? No. Oh.
I did not. I took that out so that we would.
Wait. Go back
we
to
would have to.
Well then, fascinating.
Yeah, right? I know, because I was like, I'm going crazy here. But Anyhow, for step 11, what you would do previously, before I guess an update happened, I really don't have an answer for it. You would get this far, and both the web and the API servers could not talk to each other. So you would get an error here. And what you needed to do is go into policies, create a brand new policy, which would just be as simple as create new, give it a name, and then just dump these rules in there. And after you've dumped those rules in there, you would head back over to the tokens themselves for each of the node identity tokens. So it's like, how do you know if it's a node identity token? Well, it's got the host name in there instead of the service name. And then you would just attach it right here and save, and that would fix the problem. But since those rules, as you can see, are now included here, we're actually done and everything is up and running.
Yeah. So as a note, this is what we were talking about earlier when I mentioned we made a compromise on security versus automation. For the sake of this demonstration, we are adding a token, a bootstrap token, a preset bootstrap token. This is not advised configuration for production. As Carl pointed out in the chat, this is why we had used Vault in the first place, or we introduced HCP Vault in the first place. You should rotate this token this ACL token after you have used it to bootstrap the system. We are using this for automation purposes. So this is something that you should refer to part 6 with the auto config, which will give this more dynamic, which would set this more dynamically.
Weren't y'all still just generating a static token for the master one in the auto config piece?
You can set it so it's not, I believe, as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we still had the UUID thing from it. But I mean, yeah, it does make sense. You probably don't want to, not probably, you don't necessarily want to do that. But yeah. Okay, so here we are. Apologies for the GPG hiccup. If maybe we'll just do our getting up and running marker, I guess, for somewhere around this bit. But that's the end. So now we can move on to my question that will bridge us into the service mesh piece, which is, Rosemary, why are we changing any of this? Like, if the catalog thing is going and we can just keep going, granted with some automation hiccups and some questions around the token system, why are we bringing Envoy into the play here? Why are we doing Consul Connect? Why is there like a different system in Consul for doing this? Like, that's kind of, that threw me for
That's a lot of questions. That's a lot
of
questions.
But you're Rosemary Wang, and you know all the things, right?
No. I'm sure I'll get something in chat that it has a different explanation too. But so I guess just to explain a little bit about the problem set, the problem space. So we started talking about microservices. I want to say, we talk, I guess, in terms of popularity, the surge of it is probably like the past 5 years, right? It's microservices as an architecture concept has been around for a while, and the premise behind microservices is like, hey, we should decouple our code bases as well as our. Now, I'm oversimplifying this, by the way, everybody. But we want to decouple our code bases so it's easier to maintain. It aligns with business requirements, the things we need out of it. It's easier to evolve and change things, right? Because if you can imagine, you throw all your code in one place. For those who are familiar with Terraform, I'm going to speak to the sort of the operator perspective. But if you've ever thrown all of your Terraform in one place and tried to make changes to it, you'll notice like you'll be waiting 10 minutes for like 30, 40 resources to change. And that takes forever, right? And so the similar problem exists in the application space, right? The larger your code base, the more concern you might have if you're trying to change it. You have a lot of dependencies that are probably linked up in multiple places and you don't really know anymore. Testing is really difficult. It takes a lot of time. Right. And at the end of the day, there was an operational burden and a development burden to maintaining a very large code base. So this is why we started talking about microservices. How do we change things in your system more independently? Domain-driven design / development. No, sign. Brain is like imploding. I was like BDD. So whatever. Domain. You're splitting up code by domain, by business domain, to evolve them more independently. Became appealing. And you'll notice all of these descriptors are a business problem and a development problem. And they're kind of abstract, right? And so the best representation of this problem, or the best solution to this problem that was represented, was Java. So if you're familiar with the Java space, Cole, are you familiar with Java?
I know that they don't like verbs and that they love nouns.
Interesting.
You haven't read that? That
No.
everything in Java is a noun? Oh, it's such a good article. It's pretty funny.
I guess that would
Anyhow.
kind of make sense. Anyway, and I think it's partially because the folks who were doing microservices were using Java as a programming language and expected more out of frameworks, right? So Java had a number of microservices related frameworks, Spring being a big one, right? And the people who were doing microservices ran into some really interesting problems. By interesting problems, I mean, like when you have microservices, you could have n layers of services communicating to each other. So it's not just your 3-tier application anymore. You could have n tiers, right? And so they had if one failed, upstream, then everything else would fail, right? And then the system would churn, everything would get stuck. No one knew what was going on. Then you have to fix this. It was like a whole situation. So for someone to do microservices, but then not get the benefit of it, was a big problem. Why is this important? Well, people started to think there are better solutions to this. We have to get better about retrying. We have to get better about traffic shaping, like where it goes, right? Because if you have version 1 of an API, version 2 of an API, you have to control where it goes. So people started to develop libraries for it. They started to develop code, right? And this code was allowing a developer to go in, control all of these knobs, right? How do you want to retry your service? Should I behave a certain way if the database isn't working? Should I move traffic to version 1 or version 2, right? And it got very complicated. So Spring had a lot of libraries for this. Hystrix was probably the one that's like the big one that people were interested in talking about. With these problems, there became a bigger problem. The world, while a lot of people write in Java and run applications in Java, not all applications are in Java. That's the reality. And so people started to seek better ways to do this, right? That didn't involve code, right? You didn't have to type in code and figure out how to turn these knobs and install libraries. There had to be a better way to do this that didn't involve adding more code. Well, it's kind of counterintuitive because the answer was, let's build a separate process that is a proxy process that handles all of these functions for me, right? So then I can continue to write my code, focus on the business domain of, here's my code, it needs to process a payment, right? Let's take the code that has nothing to do with processing the payment and just stuff to do with reliability, shaping traffic, etc. Let's move that somewhere else into a different process. And behold, for better or for worse, we came out with a proxy. And so that is how proxies came into place, right? Sticking some second process in front of a service, and any traffic that a service needed, any requests that a service needed to make, any inbound request goes through the proxy. The proxy is kind of like a gatekeeper. It's sort of like the first line that says, hey, can this service get this traffic? Can I do something with this request? What should I do with this request? Where should it go? How much traffic should I give to said service, right? So all of these things, all the code that we had previously done in Java libraries, etc., we moved out into a proxy. The proxy, by extension, meant you could evolve your service independently of any of these functions, right? So you could say, let me just swap in a .NET app. Let me swap in a Go app. Let me just swap in whatever it is and control all of these retry functions, traffic, network-related functions somewhere else. So that kind of gives the understanding, or at least my understanding, disclaimer, of how service meshes, how we got meshy. or at least how we got a proxy, or how it came about, at least in the probable space.
Nice. Yeah. So just for recap of your wonderful lecture there, we moved from simpler structures and applications to more complex ones, to where there's more things talking to each other. And it got to the point to where it was like a Jenga tower or like a domino stacks, where if you screw over one service somewhere in the stream, it all goes to craps, right? So everyone started saying, well, let's make these services be a little bit more independent so we can develop them separately. If one of them goes down, that doesn't mean this one will go down, and they can continue talking. However, the tools to make that happen at the time are largely software dependent. So in this case, in the example Rosemary gave, in Java, and that kind of stinks, because if you're not on Java, well, what do? You don't really have anything to handle that. So then the idea became, hey, let's get it out of the code. Let's put it in something else, and we'll create this concept of a proxy that will sit on these clients with these applications. And when they need to talk to each other, instead of playing the whole, like, what is it? The little cup and a string, fragile way that we're doing. I guess that is right. Yeah. We'll just send everything through the proxies, and the proxies will become the new place where we determine how these applications talk to each other. And that gives us a little bit more control over things without as much mess, since if we need to change something specific about them, we can just do it in the proxy.
That is a much more concise explanation. So,
I mean, I just summarized what you said. So that said, how is what we're doing here, like the difference then here is that instead of us registering these things all manually through Consul, which we kind of have to do, even if we automate that manual process, is that the biggest key difference of what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be moving to these proxies, because right now we're not using that.
We are not. So we are resolving DNS, and that is all we're doing. We don't have control over, let's say, like if we wanted API version 2. We don't have any control about saying, okay, send 10% of traffic to API version 2. We don't have that right now, because we're not even passing. Remember, web connecting to API isn't even going through a load balancer.
Right.
And then you have like 100 services, as we pointed out. When you have 100 services, do you really want to go to a load balancer and sit there and be like 10% must go here and 90% must go here? No.
Yeah. So in essence, it's like we're moving from, hey, everyone, here's a phone book, have fun looking through it, to, all right, everyone, here's your operator. When you need something, just talk to them and we'll connect you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
All right. So how do we transform our current process to the new way?
Okay. So there's a couple of nuances to this. Step one, which is what you mentioned, we have to install a proxy. There are various proxy technologies that you can choose, or you can choose around, right? And most folks who decide to run some kind of mesh capability with their services go with Envoy. So we are going to go with Envoy. Now, Envoy, perhaps it's better for you to go to the documentation. If you can go to the documentation, Cole, for Envoy config.
In our stuff here?
No, in just on Google or some web
Literal
page.
Envoy. Okay.
Yeah, just go to the Envoy. Okay, so Envoy's a proxy. If you can go to the docs, you could go to like 1.20 or something. It doesn't matter either way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, either way, it's not really. So if you go to configuration reference, and if you could go to, like, let's say listeners, for example.
Whoops.
Yeah, any of the
overview?
above. Yeah, overview is fine. We're looking at v3 reference. v3 reference.
Okay.
So here's where. All right. Let's look at this JSON. This is an Envoy configuration, right? So when we talked about, okay, we started to think about proxies. We're like, these proxies have to have configuration, right? Otherwise, these proxies have no clue who's communicating with what, right? Because like you said, you have to give instructions to a phone operator to understand where the phone call is going to go. So imagine you putting in instructions using this JSON config. Cole, do you understand what this config does?
I mean, no. I mean, I
Yeah.
can look. I haven't really tried to read through the things, but there's a lot of stuff here.
There we go. So here's the challenge with proxies, right? And it's not picking on any of the technology in particular. Proxies are challenging, and there's a lot of config involved. And so what happens is people started to recognize that passing configuration to the proxies gets a little difficult. You have to know what all of these things mean, right? And you have to get them in the right syntax and the right schema. Otherwise, your proxy doesn't do what it's supposed to. So people started to think, okay, now we need another layer of code. Forget just like the code for proxies controlling things. We need another layer of code to pass configuration to this proxy and make it easier for someone to configure the proxies, right? This is where Consul behaves as, in the networking terminology space, Consul behaves as a control plane, while Envoy serves as part of the data plane, right? So the idea is Consul helps you configure Envoy.
Ah, all right. That's great because I didn't want to go through and read every one of these options.
No. that is why we say Consul is a has the service mesh capability, because it has the ability to help you configure proxies and thus control service to service communication.
Gotcha. So you're telling me that if I wanted to, if I felt like being super time intensive, I could forego Consul, connect, and Consul and just try and do this all with plain vanilla Envoy?
Yes, you could. And folks have done it. Yeah. Folks have done it, and they've been able to. They figured out how to configure Envoy by themselves, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, but not everybody.
I don't want to do it though.
No, right? Like not everybody wants to go through this JSON, and it's pretty difficult. I went through the exercise once of trying to configure Envoy without any service mesh, and it was very difficult because
yeah,
you have
I like
to remember,
how it's called an exercise because it sounds like it.
Yeah, it was tricky because sometimes I just didn't know if it was the right schema or not. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that's an important thing to preface this with, right? It's that we're using Envoy proxy, but Consul has the ability to configure Envoy proxy for us. We just have to tell it what we want, and then Consul will pass those configs to Envoy.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it easier. It's like Consul's just making it easier for us to talk to Envoy and removes a lot of the heavy lifting and also makes it so that it glues the two together so that they play nicely.
Precisely. Yep.
Sweet.
Okay. So I know that was a long explanation, but in order to understand how we install Service Mesh, we have to have that fundamental understanding first.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first thing we need to do is go to our clients. We don't need to do this on the server because proxies. Oh. Yeah. Because proxies are only for the services, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
So you don't need it on the Consul server right now. I mean, we will eventually need it on the Consul server, but let's just do step one, which is install Envoy.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So
and then we'll go back and configure the server. So let's do that.
Yes. Yeah. Wait, double. Actually, I know I can check this.
Yes. But
so
if anybody in the chat, by the way, has other explanations of Service Mesh, please do include. This is a very biased opinion of it. So.
All right, so here I am. Do we want to just straight up install Envoy?
Yes. So Envoy I think you probably want to get into the Envoy. Just look for func-e, FUNC-E. You probably need to search online like install Envoy or download Envoy. Okay. There's a tool that you can use called func-e. Ooh, Ubuntu. Yeah, there you
go. Okay, so can we not just do it this way?
Yeah, you could do it this way.
Okay.
Pretty sure that's fine. Can you scroll up and let me double check? Because I usually use func-e, but hold on. Get Envoy. Oh. I think these instructions are out of date because it used to be get Envoy, but now it's func-e. Because I think you see the line get apt install get Envoy. Is it still called get Envoy? Because they changed it to func-e.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, so can you just type in Google func-e,
yes.
FUNC-E. No. FUNC
Wow.
dash E
Well, now
dash E.
dash
And then Envoy. No.
Okay.
Yeah. See that
All right.
that's it. Do the
Okay.
funky.io.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Well, I
you,
learned an
Corey.
interesting urban dictionary
No,
definition today.
we need to remind me to edit that out. We didn't see. No one saw anything. Oh
Why did they choose
no.
to name it so closely to that?
I don't
Anyhow,
know. I don't know. Okay. All right.
so here we go.
Yes. So we need you. So Funky is basically the utility to help you install a specific Envoy version. So you can control which version. So it just makes it easier.
Okay, nice.
Than apt-get, because I'm pretty sure the apt-get Envoy, the apt install get Envoy isn't updated, but I don't know for sure. So
Wouldn't surprise me if this is what you've been using and this works.
Yeah.
Let's do it this way.
yeah, and you can also
Okay.
choose the version as well, which is Envoy version, which is very important for us.
Okay, cool. So I should just do these as they are.
Yes.
All right.
Just remember where you
All right.
installed them.
Say that again.
Just remember where you installed them.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So in other words, don't just blindly paste, copy and paste. All right.
Well, okay. See, here's the other issue. Right now, it's using 1.20, which we don't. Okay, hold on. Don't run all the commands. Okay. So
Too
step
late.
one.
No, I'm kidding.
Step one, we installed Funky.
Yes.
Okay. Step two, you have to tell it which version to use. So if you do func-e, FUNC-e, don't run that, because
So
you don't actually have a YAML. You don't have a config. What it's doing is it's looking for a config file, an Envoy config file, and you don't have one. So func-e and then use. It's not on that page.
just use.
Yeah, and then you can do space -- help. So let's actually look at what it's doing. Okay. So use allows you to pick the version that we need. You don't want to use the latest version all the time, because Consul may not necessarily want to run Envoy on the latest version, right? So what I do is I go to Google, go to my favorite search engine, and what I search for is Consul Envoy integration.
Envoy integration.
Yeah. Okay, so you notice the Connect Envoy integration there. If you scroll down. Okay, there is a list of supported versions.
Okay.
Very important.
So there's the catch. Yep.
Okay, so what version of Consul are you running?
Oh.
Consul version, yeah. Okay,
1.10.1.
you're using 1.10. Cool. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay, good thing we checked that.
Yes.
Yeah.
1.10 is compatible with Envoy 1.18.4. So return to your terminal and go func-e use and then that version, 1.18.4.
Why is there a tab in this?
I don't know.
Okay, there we go.
Well, okay. So now it is downloading 1.18.4. Very important.
Nice. And it has downloaded it.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. So now.
Okay. So now you have to look for, just to make sure it's installed, you have to go back to your terminal, func-e, space run, space -- version. What this will do is show you the version that you've installed.
Sweet.
Okay.
So
what
we'd hope.
Yes. Now you'll notice that it is in a bin directory. So root funky versions 1.4.bin.envoy.
Yep.
Yeah. So you'll notice that that bin directory is not on your path. So if you try to run Envoy right now in your terminal, it will not know what to do.
Okay. So we need to add this.
Yeah, I actually just copy it, because once you download it, I just copy it. So I CP that file to user bin.
Just
yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well.
Yes.
Yay. All right, cool.
Yes. So now we are 118.4. Great success. That's pretty much the installation.
Okay, sweet. Well, that was a
So
lot easier than.
if you would like, you can reproduce the installation on web, which I assume we're on API, the API one right now.
Actually, we're on web, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, doesn't
So,
matter though. We'll just do
yeah.
it on the other one.
Yep.
Okay, cool. What did I? But all we've done right now is just install Envoy. That's
correct, because
yes, okay.
you need the Envoy binary on the machine in order to do anything.
Yeah.
If you do not have, the thing is that the proxy software has to be on there. You can't just like run the mesh and then things magically happen. You have to have the proxy software on there. So that is like you don't just like turn it on and then it works magically. You have to install the proxy, which it seems ridiculous, but like I actually made the mistake of assuming that I could just turn it on and run it, and it doesn't work that way. You have to install the proxy binary.
Mm-hmm. I was under the assumption that we were that it would just get installed through Consul as like some dependency or something, but I guess that makes sense. It's not, since you can use other ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Repeating, we're using funky.
But just to be clear, just to separate it out, as Cole is installing this.
Yep.
There is a built-in proxy for Consul that you can use for development or testing purposes, right? So at one point or another, there was a built-in proxy you can use for testing. It is not something that we advise for production necessarily. So, in this situation, you have the option for a built-in proxy. We are not doing that today. We're doing Envoy.
Oh, wait. How did I get the path? Oh, version. That was how. Yes. All right, all done. On both.
Okay. All right. So now that you have installed it, now we can go to the server and enable the mesh capability.
Okay.
So gotcha. I don't remember off the top of my head what this involves.
That's fine.
So hopefully, I think there's a Learn tutorial that we're referencing for this.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yes, because we're going to need that, because I don't remember off the top of my head. There's a lot of configs.
Yeah, there are quite a few. I wanted to see what exactly they were all doing, because it seems like that my understanding here is as long as Envoy is installed, once we set up this configuration, it'll just start using it. Yeah?
Yes.
Sweet.
I believe, but where there's some things, it will use it, but we have to run a command. That's kind of the downside. There's an additional command we need to run, and there's also something we have to set up on the server. And we're going to have to change the security group, now that I think about it.
Right. Let me go look here. Why is this freaking out here? Okay, It's not. I don't know. I've seen this thing before, but actually I think this is, this is from earlier. This is before I had everything set up, so we can ignore this. Okay, so here we are.
If you could go to your Consul server, there's two main things that I believe we're going to need to set up. And
do we need to be in the config file?
Yes, we do need to be in the server config file. And I believe someone in chat will tell me that it is completely wrong and we need to add something different. So just in case.
Okay. Well, so much for not showing the master token. It's cool.
Whatever. We're going with it at this point.
It'll be down soon enough. So.
Okay.
All
right. So drop down. Okay. So there are a couple things that you're going to have to enable. The first is that you're going to have to add ports gRPC. So do you have a list of ports up there or no? No, you don't.
I think so. Is it this particular field right here?
Yes. So Connect uses gRPC. The proxies, right? Proxy config needs to get updated on a gRPC port, and that is 8502.
Okay. So we'll drop that in there. And this is again, this is the port needed for the proxies, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that.
So we need to enable that. And then there's another config. I believe there's something like connect enabled. Okay, there you go.
This one right here?
Yeah.
All right. So there's
So
that.
that's enabled true. What else are we missing? We could do UI config, but we don't have like a metrics server right now, so
Okay.
Enable central service config. So I think we probably want to enable that. Let me double check.
Okay.
So when set, Consul agent will look for any centralized service configuration that matches a registering service instance. If it finds the agent will merge the centralized defaults with the service instance config. Yes. So we will need this probably. It is enabled by default. Thank you, Carl. After 1.9, so we don't actually need to include it.
Okay.
Which is good for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So central service config is important because basically remember how I mentioned the proxies get configured?
Yeah.
You can either choose to configure each individual proxy depending on the service.
Yeah.
Or you can have one configuration that you're like, this is a default or this is a central configuration that I would expect for most of my services.
Nice.
So central service config is effectively a method for you to tell Consul that it needs to, by default, look for a main service configuration and then expect to merge any differences or new, like, specific ones later on.
Yeah. But this is for whether or not you're using the Envoy or the proxy, Consul Connect in general or not, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just saying like, okay, there's one service configuration. I'm expect to do it centrally. Like, maybe there are some minor changes, but those are going to be there will be exceptions, right, to the rule. So this is by default.
It sounds like this is like in summary, if this is true, you can have a default configuration file that all other things can draw from, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, it's because it's enabled whether Connect is on or not. That means it can be used for both with Connect and without it.
Sorry. No. It's only enabled. It's only it's a config that gets registered if you enable Connect. If you enable the service mesh. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So it's only for gotcha. That makes sense.
But
and is this what it looks at then if it's enabled?
Yes. Config entries. So you can tell it there are a couple proxy defaults. Like, for example, proxy defaults are like the one I use it mostly for is like protocol. So what's a default protocol? We might want to set it because our services are HTTP. We don't really use TCP on our services. Fake service is making HTTP API requests. So we can set the config entries. We don't need Envoy Prometheus bind address though, because we don't have. Well, I mean, I guess we will eventually have it, but we didn't get to the metrics part or the Prometheus part yet.
So this goes in minus Envoy Prometheus bind address.
Yep. Cool. That's correct.
Okay. So let me get down here.
Yeah, but as Carl pointed out, the central service config is default to true in after 1.9. So we don't have to do anything.
Gotcha.
We just have to.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so all this is saying here is that it's going to set up the protocol to HTTP as a default for any proxies that we create. Now, just a quick question: if let's say we want to set up some different bootstrap options here in a client, if we were to pass it a config that excluded protocol, would this just be in addition to it, or would it overwrite it and suddenly there'd be no protocol?
So there is a separate configuration entry. So in Consul Service Mesh, there's this construct or this concept of configuration entries. So they're effectively configuration pieces. There is a way to override the default, and that is by a service default. So you can create a separately that's not part of Bootstrap, or you could do it as part of Bootstrap as a separate configuration entry. But you would say this service is not HTTP, it is TCP.
Okay, so that would be like going to another client. This would be service instead of global right here. And then
no, kind. It would be kind.
Oh, kind. Okay.
Kind, yeah. So
And,
kind would change to service dash defaults.
oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Service defaults over proxy defaults, and then
Mm-hmm.
it would overwrite it. But if we
Mm-hmm.
had service defaults and there were unrelated fields here, it would not overwrite this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would
cool.
just add or merge. It's a merge, right? So if
Yeah.
there's
Okay, there we go.
existing, it will merge. It will overwrite any existing ones. If it's newer fields in there, it will just add them to it.
Cool. Sounds good. So, what up next?
Okay. So now you're going to restart the server because now you've
Okay.
gotten, hopefully we don't bork it. So
No promises.
yeah. We have just configured the server, so let's see if it comes up. Okay.
Oh, it's kind of looks like it's going.
Uh-huh. Cool. All right. All right.
Any other checks we should do?
Seems fine. Let's just refresh your console
Yeah.
UI, make sure, because it looks like it's
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does look like it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other services disappear, but I assume that's supposed to happen, right? Because
Right.
we have it configured.
Right.
So when we set that up, it immediately starts trying to reach out to these things over the proxy, this new system versus the old system, which is why, okay, yeah, because they're playing a different game now. So that's why the server doesn't see the other ones.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And on top of that, you know how we had, we'll get to the clients and I'll explain the differences. So we got the server has it enabled. Cool. Great. Awesome. Okay. Next, we now need to configure one of the clients. So go to one of the clients.
All right. Let's just start with the API. Yes.
Yep.
All right. And I guess we're going to need to be in that same file.
Yep.
All right. Here we are.
Yep. Okay. So I think the only thing you need is that port to gRPC. I think.
Oh, okay.
That's,
gotcha.
I think that's the only thing you need.
To just grab this. Gotcha. And just for a reference for people that are watching, and then also just for myself, is this anywhere on here?
Scroll up.
I don't
know.
recall seeing it.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. Oh, there we are. Okay. It's a
see
Consul HCL. No, keep scrolling up. Scrolling up. Maybe not. Well, scroll down.
Yeah, this is...
I wrote this one. Haha. I think, was this one of the ones? I don't even remember. Yeah, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Yeah, I think I didn't copy paste it in here. You only need the gRPC port, so that's
gotcha.
it. Yeah.
Maybe you wrote it somewhere. Nope. Okay.
It's in the code config, but it's not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is all we should need here.
Yeah, that's all you need.
There's nothing else I need to do here to tell this that it should start doing stuff with Envoy and the proxy?
No.
Really? So just through this port, it's like, all right, we know that to go through Envoy.
Yeah, there's one more thing you have to do, but that's not in this config.
Okay, cool. All right, well, so there's one for the API service. Should I go and restart Consul, or should I do it on the web one next? Nope.
Can you move the service registration config that you have and just like either append it with like your own web or API?
API.
Could you move it and be like api.hcl.back BAK or something?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Can you list console.d? Just make sure there's no other config. You just don't want, I want you to remove the HCL extension, actually. Like remove the API.
Oh.
Okay. I don't want it to pick it up, basically.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. Because we don't do service registration anymore with Service Mesh, right? We have the Envoy proxy register it for us.
Oh, okay.
Technically we do, but whatever. It's fine.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So the reason we had this before, this API service definition, was because we needed it. So when we started up Consul, it would look for that, but we don't want Consul to look for that now because we need to tell it about the service in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I don't think it changes too much, to be honest, but I don't want it to do it right now, especially if we're restarting it. Because we actually have one more config we have to run, or we have one more command we have to put together. That's not in here quite yet. And then we can figure it out. Actually, sorry. I'm looking at the scripts right now. And I think we actually do need that HCL. We do need the HCL, but I don't want to enable it now, if you know what I mean.
The dot back one?
Yeah, the dot back, don't delete it because we'll need it, but I don't want console client picking it up right off the bat.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is tell console to write an Envoy configuration, right? Because what happened was that we got the client. The client is saying, okay, I have service mesh now. I have the mesh capability. But Envoy needs the configuration. So we need to write a command in order for us to effectively tell Envoy this is the config you're going to get.
Okay.
So that is where, if you go back to the Learn tutorial, there is a systemd file that you will have to create.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
So that is this one right here.
Precisely. So there is we're not going to create it right now because I want to at least show you what it looks like. But there's a console connect envoy command. So if you go back to your terminal.
Okay.
And you go console connect envoy. And then dash help.
Oops.
Okay. So there's a number of configurations you can set. But console connect as a CLI command signals that console you need to generate configuration, and then envoy is the proxy type.
Okay.
So there should be, if you grep in here, there should be like a JSON or something. Like there should be a bootstrap. Bootstrap. Okay. So if you could do this for me, if you could do console connect envoy dash sidecar -4, because you need to tell it which sidecar it's for. Are we on API or web?
We are on API.
Okay, if you can do API.
Okay.
And then dash bootstrap.
All right. That's it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, no sidecar proxy registered for API. Dang it, we have to do the service registration first.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, then we need to make some changes.
Okay.
Okay.
All good.
All right. So if you go back to your API.htcl.back, and if you just copy, I don't want you to move it, just copy it so we always have the last one preserved. Copy it and then just,
Copy it to a new one or?
To API.htcl, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just in case we mess up, because that could be likely.
Sense.
I don't know. You might have a problem there.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So here we go.
Into the file now?
Yeah. So you need to go into the API.htcl file. And now we are going to add more things.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing we're going to add, let's see. So we got the name. We got the port. Token. Okay. So we will need to set, I wonder if we need to set the address. I don't think we do. Okay. If you go down to the bottom and you add a new block called connect. I'll send you the config over Slack 1 second. So we'll edit this config, but it's not 1 second. 1 moment, please. I'm trying to find you in Slack. Here we go. Okay, here we go.
Alrighty. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So a good number of things. Yeah. That'd be better than me typing this out because I would totally mess this up.
Yes. Yeah, so we may not need the TCP IP address. I think we might need it. I don't know. Maybe we could get away with it, but I don't think so.
Okay.
So
Is it picking this up?
yeah,
This,
so it does not. I don't. I
okay.
am not 100% sure that it does.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that was just scripted for scripting purposes.
Just something you injected in. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let me get rid of that so I can just straight up.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that we need to. I probably should explain. Ooh.
Yeah.
In this config. Okay. So you want to delete the proxy config thingy. So everything from proxy config protocol envoy, because we already configured that, remember, as a default. So we don't need it.
Yeah. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you can delete that. Okay. So what this will do is create so it says this service is connect enabled. That's what the first block is.
Okay.
It will create a sidecar service, which is the proxy.
Yeah.
This is automatically registered as the service name -sidecar -proxy, unless you otherwise specify something differently. You also want to tell it which port to communicate on, right? So the service will connect to Envoy over some port, and you must specify which port it is. Now you can default it to certain things if you want to. 20,000 is pretty standard. You don't want it on 19,000. 19,000 is the Envoy admin port, so you want to leave that. You don't want it on 19,000 just so that you can retrieve configuration information. So you usually want to pick something like 20,000 and higher. At least that's what I do. You can choose other things too. You can choose other ports.
There's also that dynamic port range that like 32,000 plus or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So TCP, so this check is a health check. It just determines whether or not it can communicate to the Envoy sidecar correctly.
Okay.
It is good to have it. Without it, you might run into some issues. So that's why,
So this IP address, won't the local service always be communicating with the Envoy sidecar just through localhost?
It should, but when you have multiple interfaces, it may just pick like a random one. That's kind of the problem.
Okay.
It will just pick whatever is the primary, and that's where we run into some issues. So in this situation, we should be okay. We could say localhost, although 127.0.0.1.
Just the loopback address would be better.
127.0.0.1. Yeah, just do that. Okay. And then we'll see how it goes, because I'm not 100% sure. Okay.
Is this all that's needed right here?
Yes. That is all that is needed.
All right, so I'm going to save it here.
We will see what happens. It could go well, it could go poorly. I'm not 100% sure. So systemctl restart console. So now, because we do need to get it to register. So yes, it should register now. And systemctl status console. It will fail, like the sidecar will be failing because the sidecar's not up. But, okay, that's fine. Failed to update from watch. API sidecar proxy. So it did create the API sidecar proxy, but it is not getting information from it, which is kind of makes sense because we didn't actually start it. Right?
Oh, yeah, right. Because I guess Envoy's just chilling right now.
So if you go to your UI.
Okay.
Yep.
To the UI.
Yes, you'll notice that it magically now tells you it's in mesh with the proxy. So it identifies it successfully as a service mesh capable service. So if you click on that and you go to instances, it tells you a couple things, right? It tells you service check passing, nodes check passing. Kind of a misnomer because I'm pretty sure that it's not actually passing, but now it seems to be passing for some reason. Well, if you go back to, we'll see. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Check is now critical.
So
Well, that's
maybe
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Basically, it's saying it's not able to connect to it, which is fine. That's okay. That's actually what we would expect. If you go back to your terminal. Okay. So it has been blocked by an ACL somewhere. Well, that is good to know that it has somehow been blocked by an ACL. Okay. Service mesh ACL. So there is an ACL policy that is potentially missing, right?
Yeah.
I think it might be in this Learn tutorial. It looks like each service must have a unique ACL token, service ACL token, individual service token. Maybe. Well, the question is, what is our token even looking like? I think we have it. It should have enough policy, though. I think it has enough of a policy.
Let's see. Because it should be on the service token. And this is what it's got right here.
That should be fine. We've got API sidecar proxy, too. So they're all in there.
Yeah. Did we maybe misname? But you know what? No. We had that one command that we ran this one, but then we stopped and paused and went and did the other stuff. Do we have to do this?
Yeah, so we do have to do that. So I would just do that first.
Okay.
Yeah. So here you are. Okay. So pause. We are not done registering the service, right? So we have no Envoy running. Right? But what I wanted to show you was that if you run Consul Connect Envoy sidecar for API Bootstrap, you can actually see what config Consul will generate for Envoy.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about how there's
here's that ID too.
Exactly. There's a big JSON file that will get passed to Envoy. That is the Envoy-friendly JSON schema, right?
Yeah.
This is it. So you'll notice there's the static resources, the admin, etc. What I already talked about before, the admin path is at 19,000. As such, as you pointed out, the ID of the sidecar proxy is as such. Yep. There's some static resources down there. So we're not going to look at the static resources right now because we just have, Consul enabled. It's not much there. Scroll down, keep scrolling. So there's just a bunch of JSON. And then if you keep looking, there should be there we go. So there's a couple of other things like dynamic resource configuration too. That's for service discovery. But you'll also notice there's an xConsul token field. That's an API token. We don't have an API token for it right now, right?
Okay.
Which is why it's complaining that it can't connect to anything. So if you can pass the token from the API file to
there.
I'll show you. Just copy the token first.
Okay, gotcha. So
that thingy.
And we're gonna need to probably put this file somewhere, right?
No, not yet. If you can go back and do the Consul Connect Envoy and if you can
there's gonna be an option, isn't there?
Yes. There's a dash token option. Yeah.
Okay. Does it need quotes?
No, it shouldn't need quotes.
Okay.
There's no special characters or anything.
So then this should fill that in, right? Oh, look at that.
And then if you scroll up, there shouldn't be an error message that says 403, access control situation.
There is.
Permission denied. Do we not have the right permissions on this token?
I mean, we have the right. There is no read, though, but would that matter?
Right gives you read, so...
Oh, it does? Okay, well, then I really don't know.
Well, we can try it.
Oh, is this supposed to actually set all this up, like this right here?
Not yet. So we'll try this. Same command, just remove bootstrap. Bootstrap just shows you the JSON.
Okay.
Yeah, so run that. Okay, so it is not pleased with something.
Yeah, let's see what.
Well, it says it didn't connect. I don't
It's
exactly
still
know.
doing the whole permission denied thing.
If you go down though, Envoy does start. It does start, so that's good. So all of this indicates that it started. The one way, yeah, and it updated the listener. So it has started. If you go back to... I don't think you can go to the UI because we have to run this in the background, right?
Yeah, what does this look like?
Well,
why?
It looks like the same as before. I'm pretty sure the checks are the same.
Before this was red though, and now it's green.
Well, click on that. Let's see. And then click on service checks, node checks. Click on that thingy. Okay. So, all right. So the big one is, the important one is the connect Envoy sidecar check, which
so apparently... So it's working.
Yeah, apparently it works.
Okay.
Well, I guess that it did authenticate correctly, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But it looks like it got in, so it's there.
Just so we know that for it actually working, the way that we would know that regardless of what's being said, it's actually working should be that once this is all said and done, when we hit that load balancer for web, these two things should still be able to talk to each other.
Precisely. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, and right now they can because I think they're still going through the old thing still.
Yeah, it's still going through DNS.
Oh, wait, do we have to restart the API service? Because even though we changed that config file, no,
because it's still up and running, right? API is just running by itself. Now, I mean, so it will matter. We need to change web. We do need to change web, but we don't need to change API. API is not depending on anything. Something depends on it. So it being what is, API is what is in the Consul term an upstream service. So API doesn't connect to anything, right?
Yeah. Well, what I meant is that we changed the API config file to include the...
Because we restarted Consul, remember?
Oh, yeah. So that picked it up and that should settle it. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. And then, so Envoy knows that this is in here then. Okay. So I guess we just leave this for now.
I guess it's fine.
Okay. Well, I guess let's continue with the other sides. And but the thing is I was hoping that this would start failing so that we could see.
It's not going to start failing because web is still connecting to API, right? Through DNS.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. So even though we added that block there, it's available through both ways then? Mm-hmm. Oh, that seems weird, but okay.
Well, there's two perspectives on this. So the configuration we're using and we will be using for virtual machines today is the local host. So directly dialing to the proxy, right? Okay. There is a mode called transparent proxy. It is very difficult to set up on virtual machines. And it manipulates the IP tables rules in a way that if you did set it up with transparent proxy, in this situation, web would not be able to communicate with API.
Okay. Yeah.
But we did not set it up as such.
Yeah. Just to clarify what I thought would happen is when we restarted this and stuff started going through the proxy itself, that the old channels, which the web is still on, would fail and it would no longer be able to connect to it. That's where my confusion's coming from.
Yeah, no, that does not happen. Not in this direct access mode. If we did it in transparent proxy with all these IP tables, configurations, and locked everything down on API, and we removed the DNS resolution, or we removed a lot of different things, then web would not connect to API, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But we didn't do any of the additional manipulations that we need to make in order to fully, remove all the available traffic.
Because we didn't remove anything really. Yeah. And so the old way is, I don't know what. Yeah. So the old way is still up. So,
it's still resolvable, right? So it can still resolve 9090 to 9090, right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's not going to change much there. So now
Yeah.
let's pop this into a systemd file. And that is the config I sent over before.
Okay. Cool. Alrighty. I wonder, will this keep going if I just exited? Nope. Okay, so that stopped as soon as I exited. So that's why we're going to make the systemd file.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's why, because we do want the Envoy, we want Envoy to run, right? So
yeah,
what you do when you do Consul Connect Envoy is that it passes the config and starts Envoy, the binary. We need to do that in the background.
Yeah, okay, cool. I wonder if, because here's where you're using that IP address thing. Do you think that 403 error could be because of the IP that we put in?
Potentially? I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah.
I did this because originally I was doing this on Vagrant. And so in Vagrant, localhost is very complicated. Like it's just, it doesn't, the IP, because you have so many different interfaces, it doesn't properly resolve. So you have to be very clear about which interface to use.
Yeah, because it looks like you're just getting the app IP address here. I'm just wondering if we need to go back and look at that again.
Maybe, but I think that will have to be done in automation where we grab the IPv4 metadata. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but even if it is just the local IP address, the loopback should still work okay, right?
Yeah, it should be fine. But in Vagrant, not Vagrant, because it's using VirtualBox in this situation, it doesn't always work. So.
Okay, so we need to make this file right here.
Yeah. So you can copy the whole line, this the whole thing, cat whatever, to the end of files. Yeah. And then just make sure to chmod 644. Make sure it gives it the right permissions and stuff. Okay. So you do need to change app name because app name doesn't exist currently.
Yep.
But the systemd file is not overly sophisticated in that there's nothing there's no like special exec starts or anything.
So sidecore for API.
And then don't forget the token.
Oh crap. Well, let me grab the token here.
I think in automation we probably want to set an environment file or something, but it might make it easier.
Okay. Was that all we needed? We didn't need to add bootstrap here? Okay.
No, bootstrap just writes it to the JSON so you can take a look at it. That's it.
Okay. So to pick up the file.
And you just need to do systemctl start consul-envoy.
Oh, okay.
Because you already started Consul, right?
Yeah.
So you just need to start.
I didn't know if those needed to be restarted or not.
Okay, so let's check it's actually started.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So we can check the service catalog in Consul and see if it is correct or not. Just make sure you have the right token. Oh, there, that also works too. Because we set the token. Okay, so you're good. That looks like it is available.
Okay, so if we go here, yep, there it is.
Okay, so one way you can see the admin. So if let's say something went horribly awry and you don't really know what happened, you can debug Envoy. So if you go back to your CLI, you can curl 127.0.0.1 colon 19,000 slash. Well, that just gives you the page slash config _ dump. That is the API endpoint to get config dump. There is the official. So there was the bootstrap. The bootstrap just gave Envoy enough information to start, and then parts of Envoy will auto-discover and pre-populate certain things. So you'll notice that what is different between the bootstrap and here is that, well, it discovered a few things over gRPC, right? So you'll notice that the scroll down. That's probably not the top. The top's about the same. If you scroll down, keep scrolling. There's a scroll up. Okay, scroll up. Okay, stop there. So there's a dynamic active clusters field. This registers, Envoy registers services as clusters. Consul, basically services are registered as clusters. That's probably the easiest explanation. So you'll notice that there's the 9090, which is the port that API is on.
Yeah, Clusters must be an Envoy concept. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so it auto-discovered that. And then if you scroll down, there's some listeners. So remember I mentioned that anything coming in, any requests coming in to the service, to API, will go through Envoy. Envoy will do that on 20,000.
Nice.
And then you
Cool.
keep scrolling. There's a couple filters in various places. Now you'll also notice that people like to talk about how Service Mesh enables MTLS out of the box, so it encrypts traffic between the services, and this is why.
Nice.
It adds the certificates. Now, previously in development, in development land, you would sideload the certificate in your application using some application code and hope that it somehow worked. Or you would terminate your certificate at the load balancer. Instead, you're terminating TLS at the proxy. Now, that's closer to the service. It's not at the service, but it is terminated at the proxy.
Nice. Sweet. And that's the end.
Yep.
Okay.
That's that. So you have now configured it for API, and now you must do this for web. Web has some differences.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. So the first thing is going to be the file itself.
Yes. You will
so we're
need
just going to need
that.
to put all this stuff in here. Oh, wait. Oh,
Just
that's
the
right.
ports.
Just this.
Yeah.
Just this because, All right. So there's that. And then, yes, Josie, I know.
The cat.
Yeah. And then this verbatim here, I'm guessing.
There are some changes. So copy what it is, and then we'll talk about what changes we need to make. Because there's some changes we need to make. And let's hope I remember which changes we need to make.
Why do these need to be different, by the way?
Okay, I'll explain it because you're in web. Okay, so remember how you were like, but web is still connecting to API. That's not very secure. Isn't the whole point of proxies for traffic to go through the proxy? Well, web has no proxy.
Yeah, so it couldn't.
So it couldn't.
Yeah.
But you also, part of this approach is that you also have to tell web that it is going to go through the proxy and it should connect to API.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Because so there's two modes, right? There's direct dialing, and then, or what I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called direct dial. There's direct dial, and then there's transparent proxy, right?
Okay.
Transparent proxy allows you to DNS resolve to something like api.service.console, which is what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
And thanks to a series of IP tables rules, routing, and various things, it will Consul and by extension Envoy will be configured to allow traffic to certain IP addresses, right?
Can you say that again?
So basically, you know how IP tables rules you can use to manipulate the route on the Linux network namespace, right?
Yes.
What happens is that when you DNS resolve to api.service.console, right now I think we resolve to like 10.2.122, 10.255.2. Whatever. It will recognize and say, oh, if traffic is outbound to 10.255.2.122, I can allow that traffic.
Yeah.
So that is done through IP tables rules, and it will stop and disable traffic for anything else.
Right. So the difference is we're going to move towards pointing that to the proxy.
So, but we're not configuring transparent proxy, right?
Okay.
We're configuring the other method on this virtual machine. The other method is that you resolve everything to localhost. So we have to tell web to resolve to localhost.
Oh, so okay. I think I know where this is going, but continue.
Like you have to tell web, you need to go to the proxy on localhost.
Yeah, cool. So this would be to change this to that 20,000 port then?
No, that's where it gets confusing.
Oh, this is the health check. Yeah, that's the health
Yeah,
check. So that
that's the
wouldn't
health
matter
check.
anyways.
So we have
Yeah.
another piece that we have to configure, right? We have to tell
Okay.
it, hey, you have to go to API. We have to tell it you must go to API, right?
Okay.
And if you find API, if you want to go to API, you need to go to this destination on this port, right? We need to be very specific, very prescriptive.
Which would be the sidecar, right?
Yeah. So there is one config you need to add. And this is relevant for downstream. So what you would say is like web is the downstream, API is the upstream service. So upstream is something that one service would connect to, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a config I'm sending your way. You will need to add a proxy section.
Ooh, okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And you don't need config, but you do need upstreams. You need to be very specific and tell web to go to API.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to just grab this block
Yes.
here and then, is that the right indent? I think it's that one, right?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is where it gets very, very confusing. But if you implement, and I'll explain the workflow, then it makes a little bit more sense. But in this mode, you have to resolve to localhost. I think you'll have to paste it under check. I think it's on the same level as check. I think, yeah, it has to be inside car service. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be really lazy here and just open it back up again. Okay. Oh, that's right. So I need this whole connect block up because I haven't put anything in here at all.
No, you have.
Oh, but
you have the check.
Here, yeah.
Yeah. But you could copy the whole thing. I mean, I think it would probably have achieve the same result.
Yeah. Next. Yep. All right, that makes that easier for indentation purposes. Let me get the parts that we know. We don't need, what do we not need here? We don't need this.
We don't need protocol. Yeah, we don't need that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gone.
You probably don't need config protocol HTTP because we defaulted it to HTTP.
Yeah,
so
we default that too. This should be 9090 though.
So here's the trick. You probably don't want to bind it to the same port as web because web currently runs on 9090.
True. Okay.
You need to bind it to a different port. So choose like 9091 or 9092, something that's not 9090. Because what you're telling it is like, oh, hey, Envoy, you need to open a new port. This port, or you need to basically reserve the quote unquote reserve this port because I'm going to communicate to this localhost 9091 to get to API.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then destinations API. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it will just know that we want to send it to the API service on the other thing because we've named it API over there.
Precisely. Yep. Because it is registered into the catalog as API. Then Consul will handle or will understand. Consul's already told Envoy, look for this dynamic, look for this cluster, remember? So now web will recognize, okay, this is a cluster that's registered part of Envoy. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So if we were just doing this through Envoy, there would be a lot more work here, but because Consul is aware of the different stuff we're doing with Envoy, knows that this is an actual thing to resolve to. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And we're just telling it, all right, even though that's the case, locally though, we are going to go through port 9091 in localhost, and that's how we will say in this particular little universe that is this VM to direct to the API service through the proxy.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
alrighty.
Yes, before you do that, or after you save this, and then we have to set up the systemd file with everything. But don't restart yet because we do have to fix web.
Okay. Gotcha. So same file here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then we will just open it up. Yeah. Oh, I need a token. I need a token.
I think we're gonna have to figure out how to configure the token as an environment variable outside of it. So it will make it a lot easier. But right now we're just like, oh yeah, let's just drop it in there.
Yeah,
Make it easy.
I wanted to do it for both the service and the node identity, but the problem with that whole like remake it is the host name would change. So
Yeah,
just,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now we will go into here. Sidecar 4 equals web token equals thing. We'll just get rid of that.
Yep.
And then
Permissions.
oh, yeah, good call.
644.
Alrighty. And then we're just gonna start it.
Don't start it yet.
Oh, that's right. We had other stuff.
Okay. So if you go to web, if you go to the web config, I think it was the service, right? The systemd file for web.
Not go to the systemd file.
Yeah, for the web service. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Not the console file, the systemd file that runs the web service. I think it's web.service.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is just web.service. Okay.
Okay, so remember the upstream URI we previously resolved to http api.service.console 9090.
Yeah. This needs to change, right?
Yes. What would we change it to?
Should just be localhost 9091, right?
Yes!
Okay.
Perfect. Indeed, you are correct. So that way it forces it to go through the proxy.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. All right.
So now you must
now we got to restart both. Yeah.
Restart web, and then you can restart web and then check your ALB endpoint. It should fail now. Oh, we need to reload.
That would probably help.
Oopsie daisies.
Don't I need to restart console 2 since we changed or start console envoy?
No, not yet. I just want to. I just want you to see that web is not working.
Okay.
That it just won't resolve to it, right? Because it's not even open.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So over here into services, maybe if I refresh it.
It's not. If you just go to the ALB, because the ALB is what is connected to it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you notice 9091. Don't care. Not open, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now restart console and restart console envoy.
Okay. Should I start console envoy first?
No, you can just start console and then, just start console envoy. It doesn't matter. It's just the service registration first, and then it will look for it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. It will just keep retrying.
Okay.
Okay. Just make sure envoy. Make sure both have started. So make sure that console has started.
Looks like it.
Yep. And then look for console envoy. Yeep. Oh, something happened. What happened? Well, I think the config might be wrong. So if you want, you can copy the console connect envoy command.
Which config?
The web config might be wrong. So yeah, if you do console, rather than do that, can you do console connect envoy sidecar for web token that and just see what the error message is? Because this doesn't tell us what the error message is. It just
say that again. What would you like?
Can you copy the console connect envoy dash sidecar 4 equals web dash token equals 3 whatever? The console connect command
this.
Yeah.
Okay. This
I just want to see what the error message is because it doesn't tell us.
Gotcha.
Well, now it's working.
Yeah, now maybe. Maybe
restart it again. Just do a restart.
Maybe it was just an order of operations thing.
Yeah, might have started it too fast. Should be pretty fast though.
wait, it's not console on. What is the name of the service?
Consul-Envoy.
Yes, Envoy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's check.
And
Okay,
now it looks to be
fine.
working.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. We did.
All right,
We did
well,
fine. Okay, now let's
yeah.
check your services. No, don't check that yet. Check it
Yeah,
to
so
see.
here's
Okay,
this.
so it is up, and then check that. Make sure your console. If you go to instances, we're not going to touch that yet.
Okay.
That, yeah, go in there, and then you'll notice same thing, right? TCP connect,
Yep.
everything's good. Okay, so now refresh your web ALB endpoint.
It's loading right now.
Okay.
So it's different.
Yes, so it is different. So if you go back to the console UI, you enabled ACLs because we enabled ACLs for this cluster for security purposes.
Yeah.
There is something called, now when you enable ACLs, it enables something called intentions by default. Now, intentions are network policy, effectively network policy or service communication policy.
All right.
If you go to your service, the web service, and you see that red line. Thank you for the Consul UI team for developing this. The red line indicates that there's no communication allowed between web and API.
Oh, okay.
So now you must enable communication between web and API. So if you go to intentions, because remember, the proxy is now controlling everything, right? So the proxy does not allow traffic by default. You have to tell Consul, which will tell Envoy proxy, that it is allowed to have traffic.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
So you can create, if you click create at the top.
Yeah, hold on. I got to move my little thingy here. Okay.
Okay, so you can tell your source and destination service. So our source service is web, and it's going to API. And then you can allow and just save. Okay, so this now allows the traffic. If you go to services again and you check out that view, well, it looks like API is having some issues, but
I think it fixed itself.
There we are.
That looks right. I mean, this looks like it's fine now.
Yep.
Yeah. So then this should start working?
Theoretically. Although I think there's probably something else we didn't configure correctly.
Okay. Well, at least it's not the intentions, right?
Yes. So. At least it's not the intentions. There's a way we can check and see if this works. If you go to the web virtual machine.
Okay. Which I believe is this one.
And you curl to local to 127.001.90.91. It probably is going to say that there's an issue. Okay. So connection failure. So somehow something is not connected correctly.
Yeah.
And local bind. And I think it might have to do with the local bind, but we are coming up on time.
With the local what?
The local. This is why I think we have to be very specific about the address, like what the resolution address is.
Oh, okay, because if this was working right, it should go straight, like that should do something, go right through to the API, right? So if we just swap this out with the local IP address, would that work?
We don't have a security group open, right, between all servers?
No, we don't.
Or
not between
clients.
9091. So is that it?
Well, it's not going through 9091. It's going through 20,000. So I think we have to add a security.
But we don't. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, if everything's going through 20,000, we don't have that at all. Okay, so you think that's the culprit then?
That might be. We can give it a try.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And this would be on the clients then.
Yeah, clients.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think we enabled 9090, but we don't really want 9090 anymore. We just want proxy traffic, which is 28,000.
Yeah. Where are my clients?
I will be right back while you configure.
Okay. That. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that's it. Let's go over here. I'm going to Terraform apply. It should be faster since it's just security group, so hopefully this won't take too long. I can't really think of what else that it might be, but to be truthful, the first time I go through these things, I always have to roll back with a breadcrumb trail at some point to really make sure that I understand the whole thing. So I just added this rule 20,000 from and to between these two security groups. So that should be it. I mean, if this is the problem, that should solve it. But even if this isn't the absolute problem, this is probably necessary regardless, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah. So we'll try it and see what happens.
Okay. So, because I didn't save it. Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's after this, if we still can't get it working, I say we pick up on the next stream. But I will say we did successfully configure proxy, where we did get the proxies registered and everything on, like registered via Consul. That's the good news. We just don't have the connectivity quite working.
Yeah.
And that's actually pretty good to save for a whole thing on debugging Envoy.
Yeah. But, okay. So that went up, and it works.
Oh. Hey. If you could go that /UI, add /UI to the end of it, to the URL.
Oh yeah, that's right, because this has the fixed service thing.
Yeah. Sweet. So you'll notice that it is connecting to API over 127.0.0.1.90.91.
Ah.
Yeah. So now you could take away the 9090 rule and just leave it as a 20,000. And that you don't need transparent proxy, which is what you were mentioning, what we were talking about before from a security standpoint. Yeah. It's not necessarily about transparent proxy that's important. It's the fact that now you can remove the traffic port for services and just leave the proxy port open.
That's nice, because that'll, that frees up the port space and makes things a lot cleaner. Yeah. Wow. And I love this intention system. That is so nice, just being able to
you can actually disable it too. If you disable it, so give it a try, and then you can delete the intention. If you deny it, we'll delete it anyway, so just delete it. Yeah, if you delete the intention and then you refresh it, it will tell you that it's not connecting correctly. It just gives a couple. The propagation time takes a little bit, but
nice. There it is. So then we'll just make
notice it comes back with a 403 too.
Nice.
So here you are.
That is cool.
You've got a mesh now.
Yeah. Sweet. I mean,
how does it feel? You got to the so 1 through 6 was about operating a cluster, a Consul cluster, all about like building it and putting it together. But how does it feel now to do actual, I guess, like a developer perspective using service mesh?
I mean, it seems a lot cleaner. I think for me, the confusion was the fact that there was the old way and the new way, and that we incrementally departed from the new way to the old way. I'm interested to go back and do the automation piece, because I'm interested to see what this looks like, getting the service mesh component set up from the ground up versus having the two overlapping. So that'll be really neat. And also because it'll help me get it fully up there. Kind of reminds me of, when you're watching like Lord of the Rings, and you're like, there's no way Frodo's going to get up there. He's not going to make it through Mordor. And then he does. Like this whole process, I was like, I don't actually know if we're going to finish this. And then we made it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is working. So yeah.
There you go. Not so intimidating, I guess. There were some, not without some struggles, but like not as intimidating as expected, I guess. Yeah. Well, sweet. Congratulations. You have a service mesh now.
Yay. Yay.